Hi, so today I'm going to do my first book review. I just finished this book. It's called While You Were Out by Meg Kissinger. And it's like a biography of her family story. And it's about mental health, so mental health illness. And this was in the 60s. And so, in Chicago. So it's kind of working through her story. Her family went through a lot of just trauma growing up. Her parents went through trauma, and then because of that, the kids went through a lot of trauma because the parents weren't there for them. So the mom had like depression and anxiety, and the dad had bipolar. And then obviously back in the day, like those terms weren't used as much and people didn't know about them and weren't treated the same as they are today. But it went through just like her parents, how they raised. So she had there's 8 of them total, and they just weren't cared for because the parents couldn't care for them. They didn't talk through things, they didn't work through things, they just kind of laughed things off and kind of moved on. And so because of that, a lot of her siblings ended up having trauma growing up, and just like a couple of her siblings committed suicide. So I went through her story and what her family went through, which I always find those things interesting, like different people, different stories, different culture situations. Like I always love reading about that, and just like even the reminder of like the Lord's kindness and faithfulness to me, and a different story, different situation, but like it just brings me back to the Lord and what He's done and what He's doing, and it just makes me thankful. And then it brings light to different families, different situations, and different areas that the Lord different family situations that the Lord has His hand on, but I haven't experienced. And with this book, her whole thing is just working through mental illness, and so like mental health illness. And so in the last half of the book, she gets into just it's in the 2000s at this point, and she's a journalist, and so she kind of does a lot of just interviewing people and really wants to like talk about mental health and what that looks like. And you know, in the 2000s, like this is now, we're talking about it more now than we ever have. And so I think she's just kind of shedding light into what her family went through. And I think as unbelievers, like without the hope of Christ, it makes sense that your family would go through that, especially if a family has gone through the trauma that they've gone through. Like I couldn't imagine the things that they had gone through, and like your siblings dying, your parents not really like there emotionally, like they're not, like the dad's emotional, like physically and emotionally abusive, like the parents were just not there to work through things with them and like process things. And so I think it makes sense, just coming from a family like that, the different issues that they would have, and then not having the hope of Christ to help them think through that and just even process that. And so it really just made me think about that, because mental health is such a big topic, and I have always kind of struggled with what that looks like. And I think when we're talking about mental health in the world, it's different than when you would talk about it in the culture, or in the church culture and church as Christians, because we do have a hope, and we have a different hope, and an actual hope in Jesus Christ and in eternity. And I think as an unbeliever, there's times of like, what's even the point of life? Like, why am I here? What am I doing other than just having joy and a good time? And for us, it's different. We're here to serve the Lord, to honor Him, and the hope of a future in heaven with Christ and those who are believers. And so our hope is different, and I don't think that means that we don't struggle with mental health in the sense of like depression and anxiety and all of that, but I think we have a different perspective on it, a different hope in it, and I also think like we also have a community with us to help us fight those things and to fight those battles and to point us to Christ and come alongside us. And so it's definitely something I'm still thinking through and processing in life and in my own journey of life and different things I've gone through. But I know specifically with the things I've gone through, like my hope is in Christ. I cannot stay stuck in those things. And I haven't gone through what they've gone through. I haven't gone through trauma, so I can't say the same in every situation. But my hope is Christ, and I think with reading this book, it was really interesting, like just talking about mental health and what that looked like and different perspective on it, and a worldly perspective obviously, but a different perspective for sure. So it got me thinking, it got me just having good conversations with people, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. But okay, thanks for listening.